Well, a 4-day work week may soon be coming to South Africa. We're all salivating here in studio. This is a joint initiative in a bid to improve productivity and wellness in the workplace. According to the 2022 Gallup's State of the Global Workplace report, only 24% of South African workers are actually engaged at work. But how exactly will this concept benefit employees and companies alike? Well, the founder of the 4-day Week Global, Andrew Barnes, joins us for more on this discussion. Andrew, you're doing the Lord's work, as they say. Tell us about why this is such an important initiative for you.
Well, I tried it in my own business, Perpetual Guardian, back in New Zealand in 2018, trying to answer a productivity question. How did I improve productivity in my company? And then what I suddenly found is not only did productivity improve, but the lives of my employees improved materially. And then suddenly the whole world sort of descended on Auckland to say, actually, what are you doing? And actually, you know what? We want this, in our countries. So you don't get many chances to change the world. This one happens to be mine.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, what you're saying about wellness and that link to productivity is so incredibly important, but I wonder whether it takes some doing to get companies and business owners to shift their mindset around clocking in and clocking out.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the biggest resistance to this is the mindset that we have that, working longer is working harder, when really we should be talking about working smarter. And if you think about it, the 4-day week, 5-day week's been around since the 1920s, Henry Ford. Why is a way of working that was designed for repetitive manufacturing industry in the 1920s, why has that got any relevance for the way we work today in the 21st century?
So arguably, Andrew, you were ahead of the curve, because I think in the way sort of the work schedule changed under COVID-19, with a lot of people or most people working remotely or having some kind of hybrid setup. You started this in 2018 already, far ahead of what we're what we had to deal with when the pandemic came along.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And what obviously the pandemic then did is that upended a lot of the norms that we'd had. Who'd have thought you could run a multinational from your kitchen table? But you can. Who'd have thought that actually in a lot of businesses, certainly service industries, people are more productive working from home. So what has happened is that the 4-day week, which was gathering momentum in the period up to the pandemic, has now been absolutely supercharged. And across the world, employers are struggling with different things. How do I make my employees to be engaged? How do I attract and retain the best talent? And this is where, the 4-day week starts to come into play as a method by which you can do that.
What have you found has been, with companies that have pushed back against this idea? What have they listed as their reasons for that?
Well, it's very simple. Well, it just wouldn't work in my business. It's the one that comes out all the time. And the problem with that is somewhere in the world there is somebody in their industry doing it and doing it very well. We see of the thousands of companies that have shifted to a 4-day week working pattern, what they've got is higher levels of productivity. And so, we talk about this. It's the 100-80-100 rule. 100% of normal 5-day pay, 80% of the time, but provided you get 100% productivity. In most cases, that 100 is going to 120, 125.
Yeah, absolutely. But companies and business owners, they actually need to be invested in the well-being of their employees, right? And
gosh, yeah.
We might have seen an improvement on that score in the wake of COVID-19, but is that a natural step for multinationals even?
Well, I think so. I mean, if you look at the amount of productivity that is lost globally from people taking time out of work because they're stressed, they're sick, what we're seeing is when you introduce something like the 4-day week, you end up with things like sick days halving in your company. You stop having absenteeism. Now, that means unplanned absences, which have a real drag on productivity, are actually reduced and reduced enormously.
That absolutely makes sense. Let me ask you this, Andrew. If a company does implement a 4-day work week, right, would that come with a proviso that, yeah, we're going to implement the 4-day work week, but it means that you cannot take off this kind of time and you cannot take off this kind of time?
No, not really. The journey started because the studies internationally indicate that people are only productive for about 3 hours a day. So what you're actually doing with the 4-day week is working out what's happened to the other 5. And quite often it's about eliminating things that are stopping your people being productive. And they do it for themselves. If the prize is an extra day off a week or a couple of afternoons off a week, they find those solutions. And often people confuse busyness with productivity. The 4-day week focuses in hard on productivity.
So you can't sort of hold it over the heads of your employees to say, I'm giving you a 4-day work week. That means that you can't just call in sick at the drop of a hat. That's not how it works.
Well, you've got to accept the fact sometimes people do call in sick. But what you're really doing, it's a very mature conversation between your employees and the employer, which is saying, look, we all win from this. This isn't like a process improvement exercise, which usually results in staff being let go because I've made the company more efficient. This actually makes your human capital more efficient. You're not getting rid of the human capital. You're just getting better productivity out of them. And therefore, there's responsibility on both sides. I have to respect my boss's time, and my boss has to respect mine.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Listen, you have my vote for what it's worth. But you're hosting that, you're part of that webinar that's taking place next week in South Africa, the launch of the 4-day work week in South Africa. Is there anything that you're saying in that webinar that sort of is tailoring it to a South African employer?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, what works for my company, my country, is not necessarily going to work in a South African context. So one of the things why we have local partners, why we're doing it with the 4-day week South African coalition, is so that the solution is one that works in the local context, not just in the international context.
We look forward to it. Andrew Barnes is the founder of 4-day week Global. Incredible discussion and incredible strides being made in the new world of work. Andrew, thanks very much indeed for joining us.